What's up everyone, this is ScherBR talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna make a full review out of the 2.5 anniversary Romance Festival Goddess Banner, also known as the first part of a musical festival celebrations. We have Goddess, a healer, supporter, and buffer. And there is also Virgil, a character that does pretty high damage in roll for shadow and heat, and Talon, a fast attacker for farming. Well, Goddess give the name to the banner, so we're gonna start with her. We have 3 different styles of Goddess in the game. The first one is an S style given out during a past event that we rerun. And then we have the first limited called Goddess System Reboot. The current one from Musical Fashion is called Instrument of Goddess. As you can see, she covers different elements, and we can compare the two versions. We have higher endurance now, going from 64 to 90%, and her wheel is also much higher, from 86 now to 104%. Those two styles are amazing for a healer or supporter, since they can actually take some damage. Well, we also have higher agility, but we lost something in the transition, and that is intelligence. We had 112% with her past style, now we have a 96%, because right now we are more defensive than offensive. We have higher love and lower charisma. It makes sense because you actually want more love and charisma when you are a healer. Now, she has a focus on intelligence and will because she has arrows for those, but the bonus goes for will and love because she does not need to do big damage, although she may fail here and there depending on the challenges because of the combination of intelligence and agility not being high enough. Remember that she still uses those two status for accuracy. But there's one good thing about Goddess. She does not use STR, she does not use Dexterity. That's why she does not suffer from bad status distribution. Even though some of her status are not that high, she actually has well-rounded status. And when farming, if you want to get more intelligence, you can use her passive style if you have, and her S style will give you more endurance. Now, let's move to the passives. The first one is called Divine Revelation. When she performs a recovery action, she will grant an attack boost of 30% damage increase that lasts for 3 turns, and a defense boost that also gives 30% damage reduction that lasts for 3 turns. So this is actually kind of her main gameplay for some strategies. She needs to perform a heal. She does have one, and another one by inheritance, so we're gonna talk more about that later. The second pass is called Divinity, and on the start of a turn, she grants herself Morale Up, increasing damage by 25%, Guard Up, reducing damage she receives by 25%, and gives herself also 1 BP, so she's a character with a 4 BP rotation, and 2 effects active at all times, because it just keeps casting. The only bad thing is that if you have another character casting Morale Up or Guard Up, it will not help Goddess at all. Then the last passives are Wall Defense 6, reducing damage received by 40%. It's the best damage reduction passive we have. Some people have High Protect Tension, that one reaches 30%, but also has offensive, this one is fully defensive. As you know, this character does not want to do big damage. As you can see, she's a pretty defensive style. With Iron Wall Defense 6, we get 40% damage reduction alongside another 25 from Guard Up Medium. That means that she will barely take damage from bosses because of her high endurance and will, at least compared to other styles. We only have Morale Up Medium increasing damage by 25 for damage, but she's not even focused on that. For skills, we have Brilliance, a 2 BP AoE attack that deals sun and heat damage with E-Power and Neat mod. It's not that strong, but it's something that she can use anytime she wants. It's only 2 BP, she gets access to 4, that means that she still saves 2 BP when using this action. Well, the next skill is called Feather of Goddess. For 4 BP and also 1 LP, you get a fast recovery spell that has C power. That means it's actually very strong. It can recover a character from 0 to max if you level this up to 99. And Feather of Goddess will trigger Divine Revelation, buffing this character for 30% damage and 30% damage reduction that will just increase the damage and resist of a particular character. You can bring her alongside Leon, for example, to give him a better sustain and a better damage when he's nuking. Lasts for 3 turns, so actually works pretty well. And you can cast another Feather of Goddess because defense boost and attack boost stacks. You can just choose a single character to just increase it to another level. But this is not the best recovery spell. We have another one for Inheritance, but we'll talk more about that later. The last skill is called Heavenly Melody. This is a 10 BP AoE attack that deals B damage 24 mod. It's not that strong, but it's because it carries 2 different effects for support. The first one is a full AoE morale down applied to the enemies when this attack lands. That will decrease their damage output by 15% and lasts for 3 turns. The other effect grants all surviving allies guard up small. This one will decrease damage that you receive by 12%, so you have 15% on source, and then you are increasing your resistance by 12% on your characters. The overall decreasing damage will be close to 25%, but remember that effects that you apply are not additive, they are multiplicative, so it depends on many different things like your character, mitigation, and other sorts of damage reduction. But it's a very nice effect to have applied most times, and if you are fighting against a boss that removes the buffs that you apply to them with Defy Weakness, that means that you have to rely on different sources of mitigation. And you can also apply Guard Up if your boss can remove your buffs. It's another source to resist damage, like also Defense Enhancement that stacks with Guard Up, but Guard Up does not stack with itself, and Morale Down also does not stack with itself. That means that you can only apply 1 stack. If you use this attack again, it will just reset the counter. But one good thing, it costs 10 BP, and she gets access to 4 per turn. That means that she will always have this effect available if she goes before the enemy. So her agility is not that high. If you are using her, I suggest you even use promotion scrolls to increase her agility to always go before your bosses. And even then, you can still use at least 1 brilliance every 3 turns to do some damage, or just rely on normal attacks because you may want to save BP. So this is for gameplay. This one is actually pretty interesting, but not exactly that game changing. Now, we need to talk about Inheritance because it changes her performance level by a lot. If you have her passive style, there is Heart of Goddess, a spell that only costs 1 BP but 4 LP. That means that you can only use this once. The effect is fast, heals all allies for 8 power and 29 mod. That it's overkill. You get everyone back to full health. It also revives if you need that, and has the cleanse ailment effect. Well, because it's a recovery spell and it lands on everyone, it will trigger Divine Revelation to the whole party. Instead of relying on using Feather of Goddess on single target, you get now the full effect in your party, but you can only use this once. So you now increase damage by 30% and reduce the damage that everyone receives by 30% too. Like I was saying, if a boss actually does not allow you to keep buffing the party or debuffing the enemy, you don't have that many sources of mitigation in the game that will help you sustain. So this is actually a gimmick that will work in these situations. The problem is that you can only use this once. So if the fight does not take too long to end, then Goddess just have this moment where she will increase the damage output and the resistance to just end the fight when it becomes dangerous. I also believe that you can apply this like on turn 4, for example, a little before you get into overdrive, so that you can take advantage of the damage increase on overdrive to deal even more damage. Goddess does not do damage by herself, but if she's increasing the damage potential of your party, this actually works pretty fine. And you can even use Feather of Goddess to stack with Divine Revelation on one target, like Leon. He already got the first stack and then the second, increasing his damage potential by even more. If the fight ends in 7 turns or so, this will be very good. But it's a little restricted in utility. If you have to bring Goddess for very long fights, she may not be the best choice. Sometimes you may prefer just keep buffing your status instead of applying things like defense boost or attack boost, but she does offer some good utility by this combination of passive and active skill. Well, she's pretty unique. She does not need any other inheritance besides Heart of Goddess, because the other attacks are more damage oriented, and if you want to do damage, you should be using the past version of her. This one has better status, it's more damage focused, and that's it. This character is for sustain and enhancements and support. Well, I guess Goddess can offer some good utility for hard challenges, but that is only if you have her past style, because this one, giving access to Heart of Goddess, will give her full potential for party buffs. If you don't have that style, then I do believe that her value decreases a lot, because you have to rely on single target healing in order to provide all buff values. And when you are just relying on Heavenly Melody, you can kinda use another character altogether. Like, well, there's Golden Ball, and she can buff endurance when she gets hit, can apply big guard up that decreases damage by 35, and when combined it's just better than Heavenly Melody. So she only really changes if you have access to both styles. If you don't, I may suggest you to think well before pulling. She will receive a high SS grade in our tier list, and I just need to say that she gets a future style on JP, and this one is offensive. She gets a very nice spell, I don't know why they use this name here, that negates shadow damage. In JP it's only for 2 turns, I believe they will buff this for global for 3 turns, just like Alno's Fire Shield. It also heals on the end of a turn, so it's actually a very interesting spell for hard challenges as well. So Goddess is a big player for the future. Now let's talk about Virgil. This character has only 2 styles in the game, both are limited. He tries to attack with multiple elements. His first style was called Launch the Fireworks, and is a tank with some taunt mechanics and can trigger BP gains to the party. Pretty fun character to have, although pretty niche. We have very high endurance and will, kind of close to Goddess, but then now he changed it into a damage dealer. This time we have a little higher endurance, we don't use SDR or dexterity, we have much higher agility and intelligence. That's good because the first style misses a lot when attacking, but still applies the taunt effect. But we lost will in the process of becoming a damage dealer. Now, this one has arrows for endurance and intelligence. It's funny because he actually wants to do damage and not be taking hits. When you compare to his past style, we got double arrows for will. Okay, for passes we have Mystic Manner. On the start of a round, he will buff himself for 20% of all status. That is very nice. Only on the start of a round. Makes more sense when you are farming, right? And then he will give himself a defense boost that decreases damage by 50%, but only lasts for 1 turn. And then an attack boost that increases damage by 30% that also only lasts for 1 turn. So at least when getting agility and intelligence, this increases his accuracy, his damage potential, aligning with a way to resist damage and increase his own. So it has some utility, but in boss fights you actually lose all of this pretty fast and doesn't help. Then the second one is called a Hostile Battle Charge 3. It starts the fight with 13 BP and will allow him to start the fight with his best attack. And also, when landing an overdrive attack, he recovers all surviving alliance BP by 1. You can inherit a taunt skill to just get attacked more often, but I don't know if that is game changing. It takes like usually at least 2 turns for a tank to reach overdrive. That is if he's getting attacked all the time. And just 1 BP, I believe you are much better using the older version of Virgil. As for skills, we're going to start with the last one, call it Beat Blast. Row attack that costs 13 BP and hits for Shadow and Heat with 4S power. They buff it is in global, so yeah, this is very strong. Will help you a lot if you are still having problems with Death Master Remembrance battle, and he can use this on start, so he can be used for farming. He can solo a wave if the enemies are weak to Shadow or Heat and are aligned in a row. The good thing is that he can follow up with Shadow Flare if they don't die, or if you want to attack a second wave, because this one costs 3 BP. That means that you can always use it if you want. Well, we can compare this character with some other row attackers like Dentark. Dentark has a row attack that opens with the power, then he casts Morale up and do double S damage. So in the end, it's just like 4S damage potential, just the same, and it's Pierce and Heat. Only common element is Heat. Well, there is some competition for the entire on the Pierce element with Cordelia. Cordelia has a very good style that it's now on Platinum, and this style here has Crystal Strike, a triple S attack with 59 mod. So now the other competition comes from characters like Talon. We were gonna talk about him in a few, because Talon has access to Proton Rocket Plus that deals blunt and heat. So the heat part can be found in some other styles. And because of Proton Rocket Plus, you can find this also on Fuse. The first style has it, and you have to amplify. And there are other characters like the T26TG. So there's some competition in the field. We're going to get this from the A style. This one is from some past event. It's not easy to get if you are a new player, but it can be used with the latest version of T260G for some good damage. So back to Virgil, what I mean is that there are alternatives for the heat part, but you won't find many for Shadow. I even did a filter here on our SaGa, and there's not many row attackers for Shadow because, well, it's not a very easy element. Many enemies are weak to everything save for Shadow. We're gonna get this new on December, and this version of In Black is also pretty soon on the horizon. But many of the enemies are weak to Shadow are also weak to Slash. We'll have plenty of different options for Slash at least. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that the character is pretty unique, although some people may have to skip if they don't have gens, and they will find alternatives in the future. For the last skill we didn't talk about, we have Fireworks, an AoE attack with 8 BP cost that deals Power 15 mod and only heat damage, but also buffs all surviving allies BP by 1, including himself. So essentially you are spending 8 recovering 1, kinda using only 7, right? And since he starts with 13 in the fight, he can actually use Fireworks 2 times in a row. Turn 3 you have to skip, but on turn 4 you'll be able to use this again. And since he does have this Overdrive passive to give yet another BP, he could be used for this, right? But I don't know if that's good enough to bring this character for this mechanic alone. He actually makes his fast style much better, if you want. The first style is a counter specialist that has 37% chance to counter direct attacks with Fireworks, giving 1 BP to everyone when this happens. He is also a counter by use of Sunspot, so you can use him in any type of formation, even Tiger's Den, and he's gonna get attacked. But let's say you are using him on Rising Phoenix Axe or Desert Lance Axe, that already increases the chance of the character being attacked by a lot. You can forget about Taunt, for example, and just inherit the Fireworks spell yourself, so you have chances to trigger BP with passive, and also when you have 8 BP, you're gonna do that with an active skill, increasing the BP generation by a lot. So the new version of Virgil contributes to make the past version better, but that is only if you don't need Taunt. So Virgil is pretty strong because of Beat Blast. This attack here is insane. 13 BP for double elements and 4S damage would have been good enough if it was just single target, but instead it's a row attack. That means that the extra area effect, it's actually a bonus, and it's not reducing the damage of the attack itself. So if you are using him on a farming scenario where the enemies are aligned in a row, Virgil is totally going to finish it by himself. Even sometimes against enemies that are not exactly weak to heat or shadow, and he will still be able to help do damage against the second wave because of Shadow Flare, something that Dentar cannot do. He doesn't have a follow-up. And you can pair him with characters that have Proton Rocket Plus, for example, and they will help finish the wave, so you can bring 3 trainees in farming scenarios. I believe he's also very strong against Deathmaster Remembrance battle. You can just do so much damage against the minions, but there's just one problem. When used against hard challenges, if they are not aligning in a row, I don't think there's many reasons to use Virgil because of his design. He has this Mystic Manner passive that is geared towards farming, and then Hostile Battle Charge is not exactly reason enough to bring him into fights because he's not exactly a full tank to use to get hit so often to trigger overdrive like people like Mask, for example, or even Polka that taunts. So this Virgil also adds utility by giving fireworks to the past version, if you have it, and increases the value of the summon itself. But if you don't have the first one and you want to skip because you don't have any gems, you will not be missing too much since you can at least use Proton Rocket to cover for the heat part, and Shadow is not exactly as useful generally because the enemies usually resist. You can go in the future with slash damage to cover most of the enemies there are also weak to Shadow. Not all of them, some enemies will just be weak to Shadow, but not slash, but just trying to understand how this guy works for the future. But he's still pretty strong in dedicated scenarios, that's why I'm gonna give him a medium double S grade in our tier list. And now we will talk about Talon, the spaceship that Arthur summons when he attacks. This character is more about farming. We have 111% dexterity, his highest status, this is the focus, and then he tries to get status just a little above the average on different departments like endurance, agility, intelligence, and will. Let me tell you, he does not need agility because he's actually a fast attacker. So I guess that the other status can help if you are planning to use him besides farming, but I don't know if he is good enough for that. But as a farmer, he works pretty fine. We have double arrows for dexterity, one arrow for endurance, and you can find arrows for agility in his assets tile that can be farmed in the event. Now, for passives, we have the Toxinator. On the end of a turn, he cleanses itself from all status elements and gets 1 BP. So with 4 BP per turn, he has better cycles to use his strong attacks because they are pretty costly. Now, the second one is called Wide Range Sound System. Starts the fight with 13 BP, that's good since he can use his best attack on turn 1. And also triggers Beat Wave Cannon on Overdrive. This is a full AoE attack that deals blunt damage and will use rank 1. But since you are already getting bigger damage because of Overdrive, the damage won't be bad, but the problem is that he's a double element attacker. I don't know if you'll be hitting the enemy weaknesses with blunt if you are bringing him for other elements. Now we have the last passive, it's called Boost System, and I have conflicted feelings about this one. On the start of a round, he grants himself 3 things: Morale up, Guard up, Large. For 3 turns, you get 35% damage increase and 35 damage reduction when he gets attacked, and also plus 2 BP. The good thing is that getting plus 2 BP per round will allow him to be better on farming, but if you bring him in a boss fight, this morale up is the only way to increase his damage. He's totally reliant on a good weapon because he doesn't have anything to increase the power of his attacks. After 3 turns, it's over, and you have to rely on the weapon power and buffs to increase the damage of Talon. It is not as good as many other farmers that we are getting with 60% damage increases and other stuff, so his attack may have good power but will be limited by design. But the good thing, if you reach turn 3 with Talon, he has access to 25 VP. On the second turn, he has access to 19, so it allows him to be used on farming scenarios much better than on boss situations. Moving on for our skills, the first one is called Shield, and it's free to use but costs 1 LP and it will give him evasion for 1 time. That's just like the evasion that Metroid 4 applies. After taking 1 hit, it's over, and at least he applies himself a stealth stance, and in my opinion, it works just for some challenges that can be cleared in not many turns, and if you need extra damage, you can bring him, use Shield, and buff him with dexterity buffs like Piano of Peace, and then start unleashing the damage after you reach max BP. Like, on turn 2 he has 19, right? So on turn 2 you use Missile Cannon instead of using on turn 1, because you will have an extra dexterity by buff. And then after that, when you don't have enough BP to attack, use Shield. But like I said, he only gets increased damage on the first 3 turns, so there are some questions about the utility of this character on long runs. Now let's talk about the attack called Missile Cannon. This is the first way for him to do damage. It's a full AoE attack that deals blunt and hit with A power. It's good by design, and it's also fast, since we get 4 MP per turn. Even after all his BP system is over, he can use this almost every 2 turns. So that part is nice, and even better, we have a formation called Hurricane, where it decreases the agility of the dexterity character that's placed on the back. Talon will not suffer from that, because he can use Missile Cannon because it's fast, and then he can use it again on the second wave. This will help a lot in farming situations. So you can compare him to other characters that are also capable of this. We have, for example, Matriarch 4 inheriting from UDX, Shining Glory, an A power attack that can be used 2 times. It's not fast, but it also heals, buff status, so pretty nice. Other characters that can do that are like Saruin. Saruin can do it with his second attack. That is called Destructive Blow. Those were the first ones to allow A power attacks to use it twice in a row. There are older characters, but just to explain that, it's not something that you see every day. But the problem is that he does not have so many damage passives. We have characters now that have 60% damage increase or even further, so it kinda holds up his damage potential even if it's A power, and sometimes this will not feel so strong. Now, the last attack is called Laser Cannon. This one is even more unique, because still fast means that he can go first, deals lightning and shadow damage. So, combination that you can find on Rock Bouquet and Maximus. They will work super well with him, especially on Hurricane formation, because that one also increases intelligence of the mid-roll characters, and it's very strong by design. So, S power on turn 1. If there's only one wave of enemies, you can use him if they are weak to lightning and shadow. It's a strange elemental combo. It's not the best one, but at least it's double element. Now, you can also inherit some stuff from Talon, and Proton Rocket is the best one from his S style. This is a triple S attack that hits for a row with blunt and heat. We talked about that when we discussed Virgil, and there are many other characters that will also be able to use Proton Rocket. Mostly T260G, latest style, has it as well. It even has more damage passives, so it will do more damage. And another character can use this Fuse. Because of Crazy Fuse, he even triggers Submachine Gun after Proton Rocket. Plus, even being a node style, he will do more damage than Talon because of that. You can also use with the newest version of Fuse, but this one won't beat Talon because of lower status. But this version of Fuse buffs blunt damage to the party. The other skill that makes a little sense is Total Shot for very long fights against AoE. It's at least available at all times because of 4 BP. Rail Cannon makes no sense in my opinion. It's not a character to use single target attacks. You are either going for Proton Rocket or Total Shot. You cannot use Proton Rocket 2 times in a row because you only have 19 BP by turn 2. But if you have someone that triggers BP passives in the team, you will be able to. There's a future character called Anya, the one that appears on the app icon, and she gives BP to the party. So in these scenarios, your Talon will be able to use Proton Rocket plus 2 times in a row. Damage will be good. Sometimes he will be able to clear waves by himself. Now, still on the topic of farming, although it's preferable to use Missile Cannon 2 times in a row, you can actually do something else. If you wanna go with a different character for wave 1, let's say Arthur. You can place Arthur in the front line of a Magia Fight formation and then Talon in the back line of the Magia Fight formation. Arthur is gonna finish the first wave by himself, and then your Talon is gonna use either double Missile Cannon on second wave and the third wave, or 1 Laser Cannon and 1 Missile Cannon if you want. Depending if the enemy changes elemental weaknesses between the waves, this works, but yeah, you have to use Magia Fight because this one will allow the fast attacker on the front line to go before Talon. Talon does not have any delay attack to just avoid turn 1, so this is the way to fix that. Sadly, I believe that Talon utility in the game will decrease pretty fast. Even if he has access to some very nice attacks, he has a bad design. They try to make him good for bossing and good for farming, but this created a conflict where he has only morale up for 3 turns, and after that, no damage increase. That means that even with good skills, his damage will lack, and we are getting characters with plus 60% increase in damage, and we are getting cheaper and cheaper attacks as well. That means that over time, Talon loses his potential against the competition. But if you're having difficulty with Death Master Remembrance Battle, Talon is gonna help you there at least. Besides, Talon got another style on JP in Game Boy banner, as you can see here, that has Arthur and another character. There's yet another fast attack, this time lock it on turn 2, that hits for heat and lightning and has a lot of damage. This version of Finn also has better damage passives instead of just relying on morale up, kind of fixing his problems. And he also becomes a healer. Still not exactly that good as some other units will be in the future. So there's that. It's a character useful now, but loses potential, and that's why Talon will receive a medium SS grade in our tier list. Now, back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? For new players, not quite. If you have inheritances for Virgil and Goddess, I believe that this becomes a silver award banner. If you don't, I would say that looking into the future, this will only be a bronze award, because Goddess has limited potential when not inheriting her best skill. And Virgil is strong, although kind of limited, and Talon has some problems being used universally, the way that he was planned to. So you can also wait to see the future banners from Minstrel Song if they will offer more value to your box. With that said, I summoned it because I had the past versions of these characters I was already planning. I stopped it when I got Virgil and Goddess. I don't think Talon is worth 10,000 medals. With that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment sections. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description. And also, don't forget to join our Discord server. We talk about romancing SaGa UniverSe and other games in general. Hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.